Sunny, beautiful Thursday afternoon. Welcome back to the Gregor Show on Sports over TSN 1260. And the sun just came out. It's awesome. So it changes your whole mindset when all of a sudden you see the sun through the clouds strutting. I love it. Absolutely love it. Let's get to the racing report, which we love doing every Thursday, brought to you by CanTorque. We're going to tell you how good their tools are. Here's the deal. You bring their tools in to trade in, and guess what? You test theirs, and if you want to get theirs, they'll even take your old broken down jalopy tools and pay you for it, even if they're not working.
Old flange spreader.
Oh, Strutty's favorites.
Vice grip.
Yeah, the spark bucket.
Tweedle buzzers.
Yeah.
No, tweezers. All the things.
Did you just say Tweedle buzz?
I'm not sure. I think that was Connor.
Maybe they could name a tool after you.
The hammer. There's only one name.
Okay, let's not go there. Colin Lewison joins us in the race report.
Yeah. You guys are kind of forcing me to say something mean.
Hammers, maybe. Colin, how you doing?
And you guys are kind of forcing me to say something mean about Strutty.
Well, you do all the time.
Hey, there's lots. Actually, there's quite a bit of news for a February race report. I like it, but first of all, I want to wrap up because we only touched on it briefly. There was the big karting, the karting championships a few weeks ago in Florida. When the sun came out, it reminded me of it. And you were down there. There were some Canadians, and you talked openly about just how challenging it is. Just like anything, as you go up the ranks. What did you learn most about that event? And was there anything that kind of surprised you when you look at the elite top karters?
Well, first of all, gotta thank the organizing group, RTX Karting, Grid 14, the guys who put the thing on, because they really went out onto a limb and added our DD2 class, which within the world of Rotax, DD2 is the top of the food chain. We've got the biggest engines, 2-speed gearboxes, and things like that. But DD2 is really not all that well represented. Nobody really runs it in the state. So, these guys decided to not only add the class, but they put a grand finals ticket on the line. We really only had 5 drivers. I mean, I'm not being funny when I say this. I was really just there to fill the field so that these other guys could have a chance. Obviously my hope was that, our friend Matthew Taskinen was going to be the guy to win. And I mean, if you think about popping into Florida, into an area where there's, nobody really does this. I mean, Matthew had a great shot. The problem we had is that 3 of the drivers for sure were all like world class. Jonathan Markison, he's a 6-time Australian champion. He was at the grand finals last year. Gianluca Savaglio, sorry if I say that wrong, Gianluca. He was at the grand finals last year, and then Matthew was at the grand final. So, you could cover these guys with a blanket. They were so tight. They were so quick. But, unfortunately for Matthew, he had some mechanical issues, which is kind of expected. We pulled the carts out last minute, didn't really have a long time to get them set up. For me, I'm basically their equipment supplier, but, in January, we're not looking to add a bunch of inventory. So generally I make my stocking orders, towards the end of February, March for the race season. So we were a little underprepared. But, as far as these guys on track, I mean, it was so much fun to watch, watch them battle. I mean, it was really clean racing. The first track we were at, I mean, the PK Entertainment Group, just like the most hospitable, accommodating, welcoming, friendly people that I've ever been around at a track. But, I don't know that I'll go back to their track just based on the way it was configured, because the driving lanes are really close. They're separated by chain link fences, which is, just horrifically dangerous. It was really bumpy, and not a very raceable track. Once we left there, Matthew got out in second place behind Gianluca. Jonathan, he was struggling with engine issues. We made it to Orlando, the second track, which was, much more of a conventional kart track. I was able to stay within about 2 seconds of the fast guys, where I was, 4 to 5 seconds off the pace at the first track, just because candidly, I was 50 pounds heavier, and I'm not really overweight. Just these guys are a lot smaller, and the weight category for senior, which is up to 32 years, is a lot lighter than what I conventionally run. I just wasn't like, there was no way, even if I put 50-pound weight suits on these kids, I wasn't going to keep up with them, but I could have at least been a little bit more respectable as far as my lap times. But yeah, once we got to Orlando, it was a lot tighter, and the big turning point was, unfortunately, Matthew, made contact, or, had contact made, depending on your perspective, with Jonathan, knocked him out of one of the heats, which got him 0 points, and that put him out of contention, even though, we started in Orlando really quick, running some of the fastest times, very comfortable with the track. But it was great to make the trip. I mean, long ass drive, 44 hours of driving by yourself, man. You really get to find out what's inside your head, because there's just nothing to do and no one to talk to. But I was fortunate that John and Matthew split the drive on the way back. I was able to get on the Bird, which I'll tell you what, getting the last night in town, getting into that hotel and having a shower where I wasn't worried about running out of water, that is a pleasure that I don't know that I can describe, unless or that you can understand, unless you spent 2 weeks in a stank old motorhome, where you're trying to manage your water between three guys. So yeah, simple pleasures. But yeah, great job by Matthew. Really great to get to meet these other guys, and now we regroup and try and get ready for our local karting season.
I love it. Love the breakdown. Joe McCall lives here for the CanTorque Race Report on the Jason Gregor Show on TSN 1260. Let's switch over to F1, and Mercedes going back to mostly black for some of their fiber panels bare. What is the change? And we've actually had a text. Why don't more teams do this?
Well, first of all, teams kind of have to maintain, like, their liveries have to be approved by Formula One, because you want to make sure that they distinguish themselves. Interestingly enough, Mercedes is known as the Silver Arrows, and where that came from was during their initial entry into Formula One, where their car was too heavy and they had to peel all the paint off, revealing the aluminum body panels, and that's where that actually came from. Nowadays, not a lot of aluminum on a car. The panels are carbon fiber, but where Mercedes really fought last year, a really overweight car. This year, they say that they think they're able to get to minimum weight, which is a good sign. But to do that, one of the steps was removing the paint and just leaving the bare carbon fiber panels. So once like, you don't think that paint weighs that much, but every gram, every ounce, every pound that you can save out of a car are hundreds, if not tenths of a second. So it'll be really interesting. Yesterday and today, they did their first shakedown tests, which you can't really read anything into it. Drivers are always going to come out and in front of the camera say that things are pretty good. But this time next week, Formula One starts the 3-day preseason testing in Bahrain. That's where we're going to start to see what's going on. Teams, like Mercedes, they don't have a real benefit from sandbagging. They really need to throw things on the track. They need to run through their run program, make sure that they figure out where the dependability is. But yeah, hopefully between Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull, it'd be great if somebody else managed to jump up into the mix, but hopefully there's going to be more of a true three-way battle. But to really answer the texter's question, a lot of these teams have to maintain, a certain standard. Like, Ferrari will always have that red, Red Bull's car. I saw a post online. If you take the livery from Red Bull almost back to the very beginning, their car hasn't significantly changed since the early days in the 2010 or whatever. And the comment was like, if you think your job is kind of strange, just imagine that Red Bull does have a livery team director, that somebody is there to actually create the design for that car, and it never really changes. But yeah, I mean, McLaren, they've taken a lot of color out of their car to get some weight savings, and candidly, I haven't paid attention to a lot of the other releases, but again, this is the time of year when everything is pure potential. And nobody's made a mistake. So, this is where it's all to play for. And unfortunately or fortunately, things start to get real here starting next week.
Calling some big names in the racing world that are going to be back on the track now in different formats. Tony Stewart is going to be running a top alcohol dragster in NHRA, and Kyle Busch is returning to the Xfinity Series. He's also going to be running in the truck races. This guy, and I didn't know this until I saw your notes. 224 wins between Truck Xfinity and Cup. Which is even more than Richard Petty. So where does Busch rank in your eyes? Is he the greatest NASCAR driver?
I always get uncomfortable with these questions. As far as his pure talent and ability to win, nobody's even close to him in the modern era. I still hold Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, maybe a little bit higher ranked just based on championships. 7-time Jimmy, obviously, nobody, I don't think anybody will ever touch that again. And Kyle's got 2 championships in Cup. Now the rule is that they can only run 5 races in the lower series if they're going to contest for a championship at the top level. So this is going to be, when you get these drivers in, running in multiple series, especially a guy at Kyle's level, it only helps the truck series, the Xfinity series. The rub was that so many Cup drivers, when it was wide open, they were running full seasons of Xfinity, full seasons of Cup, and or even truck, where Kyle was always trying to win the trifecta where he could win all 3 races in a weekend. But, in Xfinity, it got really bad where over half the field was consisting of Cup drivers. So they wanted to make it so that, they were actually developing more talent, and that rule got put in a bunch of years ago. But, when you get to see these guys race against, the up and comers, I mean, it only helps. It lets these, in a lot of cases, they're kids. It lets them know what they're going to be up against and where the competition level goes. But the Tony Stewart coming out of retirement to run a full top alcohol dragster season. I mean, if I put if you offered me $1 million to pick the unlikely story of the year, that is not one I would have picked. It's going to be awesome to watch for sure.
Colin, one before we let you go, Carl Harr is going into the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame. You know what? He won he spent time in the former CASCAR, which is now a NASCAR Pinty's series, the K&N Pro Series West. Pretty big honor for the local guy.
Yeah, just awesome. Our connection back to the Harr family goes back to my father-in-law. He at one point was building the racing engines for the Harrs. Carl and Daryl, for people who don't know them through racing, are also the founders and owners of Westworld Computers here in town. They were Apple in Canada before Apple was even in Canada. So they go back an awful long way, just a great family. Daryl's a super guy, but Carl's kind of done it all. He's been out of the seat for a long time, so I don't think a lot of people know him anymore, but really cool that another Edmontonian, or technically St. Albertian, is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame here. I think it's next week or the week following. I wish I could attend because I actually really like that event, but be really happy that Carl gets his night.
Oh, I think it's fantastic for him. It's a no better feeling, I would think, for someone to get honored and get announced that you're going into a Hall of Fame and just get recognition. That is fantastic stuff. You mentioned their karting. You guys don't get going till May, or do you get on the track in April?
Really weather dependent for us this year. It sounds like there's a small issue with the track that we need a repaving of one of the corners before it'll be safe to run. Generally speaking, we can get on as early as late April, almost certainly May. It's not as much weather dependent as it is how long it takes for the paddock to dry, because our paddock is all gravel. But yeah, we should be back on track, early May, again, all contingent on how long it takes to get the paving done.
Are you going to be running the paver call?
Boy, I sure hope not. I mean, I love to drive just about anything, but that would be I love the track and I love racing too much to even attempt to do something that boneheaded.
A little slow, I would think. A little slow for your drivers.
I like
Colin, always
driving
great
anything,
stuff,
man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there you go. So we'll see if you could get out there, do the paving. That would be nice. We will chat with you next Thursday. Have a good week.
Sounds good, guys.
Paul Livingston, the CanTorque Racing Report. So once again, congratulations. That's a big deal, man. That is a huge honor for, of course, the local racing legend Harr is going into the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame. And thanks to Colin for bringing that to our attention. So I think that's a pretty special moment. I don't care what sport you're in, whether you get into a school, a wall of honor, or anything. Just people love to be recognized. Doesn't matter who you are,
for sure.
and it's a huge thrill for sure.